Today, we're going to talk about Google Ads specifically here today, and the three things you need to know when getting into it. So hopefully what we hope to accomplish today is, if you've never done it before, to be a little bit more familiar with when you're getting into it. If you have been doing it and things haven't been quite going the way you'd like, here's a couple of things that might help you. Or even the third category, if you're considering hiring somebody to do it for you, be a little bit more knowledgeable and comfortable. So when you have that conversation, you feel, well, more comfortable by being a little more knowledgeable about it. So let's go ahead and dive right in here. Sorry, my sticky notes are not sticking. Here we go. All right, so let's start in with this next. So the agenda, here's what we're going to cover today, guys. So the introduction, check. We can, for those who love checking off boxes, we got that one done already. First, then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to define what exactly is PPC and how it works, the benefits of PPC, and then what you need to know before you start doing a campaign. And then, of course, what's next, what to expect when we go through that. All right, so let's dive in, and I'm going to try to and keep this as clear as we can. So what are PPC ads? Let's start by just defining what PPC means, because there's a lot of fun acronyms that throw around all over the place in marketing and everywhere else. So it's pay per click. This can mean a large, broad things. It's not necessarily just Google ads, but like I said, we're talking about Google ads today, but pay per click ads it is a digital advertising where advertisers, you or I or business, are going to pay a fee, in this case to Google, every time somebody clicks an ad. Okay, now we won't get into it. Again, I'm trying to keep this at a very higher level, and then we can get granular on exactly what each campaigns look like and so on and so forth. But for right now, we're just going to talk about generality. So I'll use a search ad, for example. That's when anytime you've ever gone through and you search for something and you see at the top of Google, it says sponsored. Every time somebody clicks that link and goes to that person's website, they're paying Google a fee for that. That's what a pay per click means. All right, kind of ahead of myself here. But how do PPC ads work? You choose a key set. So it's not like, let's say I'm a personal trainer and I'm going to be listed for 1,000 different things. Not likely. You're going to be probably into a very specific area. So in this case, we use pet adoption as an example. You're telling Google that you want to appear in a search for pet adoption. Okay, so every time somebody clicks that, you're going to be Google has an assigned dollar amount for what that click or that keyword is worth. It can be $2, it could be $250. $250, by the way, is kind of the outlier. There are those, but they tend to be less common. More commonly about the average amount. This is a question I get all the time: is what's the average for a keyword? It definitely changes in industry. Average is right around probably $6, $7 in that area. It can definitely go higher, and it changes all the time. So what you're paying today could pay 5 cents, 10 cents, 20 cents more later on. We can get into why that is a little bit later. If you bid on the keyword pet adoption, you're telling Google that you want your ad to appear for searches that are related to pet adoption. This can also be a more specific one, like pet adoption in Raleigh, North Carolina, so on and so forth. So all the keywords in here, that's what you're telling Google. You're paying them to be put up in one of those little sponsor spots. That's referred to as a search ad. Okay. Ad rankings and how ads win. So it's not like it's a bid for the process. So it's not like you necessarily if you have the money, you go in and they're automatically in there. If you notice, there's a first, second, and third positioned throughout the Google ads. In this case, we're talking about search ads specifically. They're going to be set in an auction style process to decide which ad gets to appear in which order. Some of that has to do with how your website ranks and scores. How good of a website is it? How relevant it is to that actual keyword. There are also how much budget you're putting in. If you have let's say a $50 a day budget, and then you have a competitor that has an $80 a day budget, Google's going to consider that and more likely than not give them a higher ranking there. So not all areas are the same. So there are some things that influence whether you get the sponsorship and where you are ranked on it. So we're going to roll into the 3 benefits of PPC ads. So what are some of these aspects? So we're going to right into the meat of this. Measurable and trackable. This is probably, if I had to pick my favorite thing about any digital area, but particularly Google, is the amount of data. So I apologize in advance. I'm a bit of a data geek. I will get into all the analytics if I'm not careful. My wife politely reminds me at dinner parties, it's not good conversation starter. It's to talk about the latest click-through rank or bounce rate on so and so. So it's just not right. But you can get really, really detailed, and you can learn a lot about not only the people coming to your website, but how your website's performing based on how they're interacting with Google Ads tools and analytics. High level performance details are there. And just to kind of take a break for a minute, because this is something that a lot of questions I get is like, what data or what details or what metrics should I look at, or which are the most important? Here's a couple of them that are end results. These are like impressions. That's how often that particular ad is seen. So it could be seen by the same person 4 times. Well, that's 4 impressions, but that's not a bad thing, because if you're getting a good audience, you want them to see it several times. And this is more referring to more of a display ad as opposed to a ranking ad. And again, a display ad would be something that is like an image they've seen on websites that will say Joe Schmo's. Well, you want to know the truth, go to Ugly Mug Marketing's website, click on it, and then leave. And I promise you're going to get a display ad. That's the little display ads that come up when you start searching for other things. Those are part of Google. Search ads, that's how often that's where impressions come in. Clicks, or how often somebody's going to actually click on it. Conversions are how many people are actually doing what you're asking them to do, whether it's going to a specific page. Stats are readily available to show you how your campaigns perform and what kind of traffic and results that drive for your budget. This is important. We need to know all of the analytics as of whether you're doing this yourself or someone else is doing this for you. It's important as a business owner to know what budget you're putting in and what the desired result and the result that you're getting. And is it a desired result? Is there a return on your marketing dollars? So this is all helps by understanding the opening part of it. So in summary, track. We have something we say here at Ugly Mug Marketing. It's like, if we cannot track it, we cannot duplicate it. If we can't get the data from it, we can't duplicate it. So make sure that we're tracking and measuring what we're doing. That's how you're going to know when something's not working right, and as well as how something is working. Quick and easy entry setup. You can get up and running. This is another thing about PPC Google Ads, is that you can get up and running relatively quickly. You can get, it doesn't take a long period of time delay from when you're putting investment in to when you're starting to see results, and that meaning web traffic. You can have a campaign set up, and then within a few days start seeing an increase in traffic. That's very, very pleasant, particularly with a lot of the new products and things that you can get into with Google, with smart campaigns, and as opposed to more of a detailed version of it. You can start setting this up fairly quickly and really get into getting these ads running fast. So the way I look at this is as opposed to doing like organic SEO, like working on page and off page SEO to move you up the ranking, which is an excellent tool. And by the way, I'm not saying that PPC is better or worse than SEO. Everything is what makes the most sense to you and your business at this point. So to give you a contrast, SEO, if we're thinking about, like, it's hard not to talk about SEO in reference to PPC. So I'll very briefly go into that. So SEO, think of the example of, you have a bucket and you have a spigot and you want to fill the bucket with water. SEO is slowly opening up the bucket. Lower amount of investment will fill the bucket, takes a longer period of time. In other words, lower tends to be month-to-month investment in it, but overall you'll get there. It just takes time. So if your business needs to get leads in quickly, organic SEO might not be the right choice for you. Doing a paid ad may be the right choice. That's more like opening up that spigot and really dumping water into it. So that's one of the qualifiers we talk about before, which one is better. So getting back on the PPC, that's one of the things that I like about it, is if we need to start selling stuff, like for example, if we started doing SEO work for a client right now and they want to affect Christmas business, we're not going to. Not likely, not significantly. Running PPC ads, we absolutely can affect Christmas business. And they're very easy. They cast a wide net, and it's fantastic because you are not trying to have to, particularly if you're doing search ads, you're not spending a lot of marketing dollars convincing somebody to buy your product or your service, they're already looking for it. You're just part of that conversation instantly because you're one of the top ranking areas. Works beautifully or integrates beautifully with other areas in your marketing. This may, if this is not the solo thing that you're doing and you're putting this as part of your palette of marketing things, it works fantastic with email marketing, Facebook advertising, all of these things tie well into it. Absolutely SEO for like the reasons I just mentioned. SEO is longer term and PPC shorter, so you can get that influx of business while you're building up your organic rankings. And you can always, if you optimize organically, you can always shift your budget to another keyword search within Google. So it works very well with other channels. It complements well. Okay, steps to take before you create a Google Ads account. You need to have an ads account. This is the vehicle that you use. Like I said, there's different options here. You can decide, do I want to get really granular into this? Do I want to get like all the nitty-gritty aspects of it and get to the details aspects of this? Or do we want to stay into kind of like manufacturing? So I kind of equate this to buying a finely tuned sports car. Okay, you may be completely happy with what comes from the dealer, and I like it, but maybe I make some small customizations and modifications. But I really enjoy that. So that's more of doing like smart campaigns. That's where you get into it, and Google does the majority of the heavy lifting. There's still a lot of cool customization you could make, but by and large, Google does most of the heavy lifting for you. You definitely still need to keep on. Let me make no mistake about it. Any campaign you do, digital specifically, any digital campaign has to have eyes on it. Set it, forget it is just a setup for failure. Eventually it will fail. Even campaigns that we run today that have been successful year over year is not because of what we did one time. It's what we did and pivoted over and over again by what the data tells us. That's why step number one, know your data, is incredibly important because you're going to have to pivot. But smart campaigns are a wonderful way of getting kind of entry into it without having to be super detailed into it. Now, that being said, going a little bit further into the whole process, getting more detailed it can give you more of that tweaking desired result and really refine it. But here's one thing. Number one, know what your desired result is before you start. Desired result dictates the path or the strategy that you have. Okay, again, and when I say know your desired result, more leads is not an answer. That's a great thing, but more leads. How many leads? How do you know how many leads? What are the leads value per you get? So if you're a consultant, or you have a e-commerce platform or something along those lines, retail, what are your desired sales per month? Know what that desired result is before you get into this. And what action do you want them to have? Do you want them to call you? Do you want them to fill out a form? Do you want them to come to your location? Do you have a shopping cart you want to push them to? So know what you want them to do. Don't just go in and start running. We see that very often with folks that have tried Google Ads and they say, this doesn't work, it's horrible. Google, I've never had any success in Google Ads. And then we go in and look, and then, well, there was no clear direction for their campaigns. They just set them up and put money in it and then put them out there and then forgot about them. So be vigilant with them and know what your goals are for your campaigns. What's the desired result? Okay. Make sure your site is relevant. This is something that is not always talked about when we talk about Google Ads. Kind of like what I talked about earlier about being relevant. Make sure that even if you are paying Google and you get traffic that goes to your website, if it is not relevant to the search that you're doing or the goal that you have, you're going to lose people. We call that a leaky bucket. So going back into using that euphemism. So like think about like how that bucket, we're cranking that water on, we're getting a lot of ads in there. What happens when there's holes in the bucket? Yeah, you're capturing some of that water that's filling that bucket, but a good chunk of it's leaving. So if your site is not relevant, not easy to navigate, you're going to have a bounce rate. I don't care how good your ad is or how successful that your search ad or display ad is to generate traffic to your website. If your website takes 10 seconds to load, you're gonna have a very difficult time converting that into back over here, what's really important. Okay, so make sure that your site is relevant and easy to navigate. There's a million resources out there to do a speed test. That's the low-hanging fruit, is does your website load fast? That's one of the easiest things to correct on your website, and it will help out so much. So yeah, make sure that your website is navigable, or your bucket doesn't hold it. Determine what an adequate budget is. So now, once again, what did I say? Before we start, know what the desired result is. I'm going to add this amount of money in, and I have this expectation of dollars out over a period of time. So there should be a return on your investment. This is marketing. Marketing is not an expense. Marketing is an investment. You should have a return on what you put in. Okay. Now, that being said, as I spoke a little bit earlier, some keywords are more expensive than others. If you're a plumber, you're going to pay a fairly decent and high level of ad spend, depending on where you are, how competitive it is. If you're in Houston, Texas, or you're as opposed to, I don't know, okay, I'm blanking on a small town, a smaller market like Columbia, South Carolina. Okay, different rates. Okay, different frequency, different searches. So the more there's a demand, that's the way Google, the more there's a demand for what you're looking for, that keyword, the higher the price is going to be. There's certainly about $20 is fairly expensive. If you're going to, so if your desired result is, if you know that it's $20 per click for this particular item, let's say we'll stick with this example, and you need to have 15 phone calls or 15 calls into your business to convert one sale for a plumber. Okay, so now we're starting to establish how many clicks or how many calls you need a day. So if you only have a budget, a daily budget of, let's say, $100, and your PPC ad is $20 per click, well, that's what, 5? Did my math right? Yeah, five times somebody can click that. Well, that's not going to generate your 15, so that's not an adequate budget. You're just basically putting that money in. So your budget needs to be closer to $200 to $400 or $500 a day in order to get the desired result. Now, for a plumber, that makes sense. Okay, in that industry, that makes a lot of sense, because that one job they get that day, and they spent that $1,500 that day, well, that job can generate $5,000, $10,000 or plus worth of income. It makes sense. May not make sense if we're selling t-shirts. So determine what the adequate budget is. Know that ahead. Don't just throw money at it. Know what you need in return. Having a testing mindset. Know that what you're going to do now is what you're going to learn from. We want success. Don't expect success the very first time you do it. Understand that this is now this is a different story for a professional. There should be a lot less of a learning curve for a professional. If you're going to be forking over money to have somebody management, they should have experience in how to do this, and they're not learning how. Now, that being said, even in the professional level, there's a certain level of testing that we'll do and say, okay, this is what we think is going to work really well. It's not working. We're going to pivot. It goes back to making sure that we're paying attention to what we're doing. So have a testing mindset, knowing that I'm not just going to put it in there and it's going to work. I'm going to test a couple of things. Very, very important. Okay. Here's where we're wrap up here. We have our checklist: keyword research and selection. Identify the keywords and the phrases that align with your business. Use keyword research tools. There's a million of them out there that you can find. I'm blanking on his name. I'll come to me in a minute. We can even talk about that once we wrap up here of a couple areas, but use the researchers. Understand one thing particularly, if I give you a piece of advice, is don't go after the large one. Be more specific with keyword phrases. So again, if we're a pet sitter, don't just try to optimize for pet sitter. Pet sitter in this subdivision of Houston, Texas. Cary, Houston. Okay, be specific, because again, you want to be able to capture website traffic, not necessarily ads. You're going to pay less for that, and it's more relevant for you. Don't just say keywords. Ad copy. This is more for not the search ads, but display ads. Writing compelling copy, writing relevant to the copy and the ad includes target keywords, things that ensure that the text and the ad line up with where they're going. So in other words, if you're a pet sitting, again, don't all of a sudden, and you're the best pet sitter in the local area, if we're not aligning that with what where they're going to, you're going to have people that leave. So once again, going back to before, no matter how good the actual ad is, if it doesn't align with what's on the website, or the website doesn't load, people are going to leave. That's that leaky bucket. bid management, set appropriate bidding strategy, regular review and adjust the bids to optimize conversions, clicks, key performance indicators, KPIs, all the sort of things. So this goes on to the active management of this. Make sure that you're understanding that the bids make, because by the way, the bids or the amount cost per click will change. They'll fluctuate all the time. What might have been a $2.50 cost per click is now $5. So if your company is a roofing company, and then all of a sudden we have a hurricane come through and there's a lot of all of a sudden searches, I promise you right now that cost per click for roofing company goes up. So understand that, make sure they're where they're going. Again, landing pages, make it relevant, user-friendly, track and analysis, making sure we're getting all this stuff done. Guys, that's it for me in the presentation. I'll hand this back over to Randy. We have, of course, she'll go through more of this sort of things here, but we do have a marketing for home services group coming up. Here's a little tag, a QR code. Do scan it if you all have a home services business, and that means from anything from maid services to roofers to plumbers to anything that is helping somebody working in the home. We are creating a special marketing group there to help you guys increase your leads. So if that's you, scan the link, go there, and we're going to be talking about all things marketing for home services. And that's my presentation.